Right now, as you read this, something is happening that no scientist can fully explain. Light hits your eyes, sound waves hit your ears, signals fire through wet tissue and electricity, and somehow, out of that, there is an experience. A you that is seeing, hearing, wondering. We call this consciousness, but we rarely stop to ask what kind, because consciousness is not one thing. It is not a switch that is simply on or off. It is a ladder, or maybe a spectrum, or maybe something stranger than either, with levels beneath levels, states within states. There is the dim awareness of a sleeping mind, drifting through dreams it will forget by morning. There is the sharp, narrow focus of a person solving a problem, oblivious to the world outside that one task. There is the wide, borderless awareness some meditators describe. A mind that has stopped clinging to being anyone in particular. Is a dog conscious the way you are? Is an infant? Is a person under anesthesia, gone, or simply somewhere you cannot follow? Some philosophers have proposed that consciousness may not even belong only to brains, that it might be a property woven into the structure of reality itself, present in some faint form, even in matter we call non-living. If that is true, the question is no longer whether something is conscious. The question is, how deep does it go, and where, if anywhere, does it end? To understand why consciousness comes in levels, it helps to start with something almost embarrassingly simple. Being asleep versus being awake. When you are in deep, dreamless sleep, there is, as far as anyone can tell, no you there at all. No observer, no experience, no time passing from the inside. Then you dream, and a strange, disjointed self reappears, one that can feel fear or joy, but often lacks the ability to question its own dream logic. Then you wake, and a fuller self returns, one that can doubt, plan, and remember who it was yesterday. Three very different modes of being, same brain. This is the first clue. Consciousness is not a fixed possession you either have or don't. It is closer to a dimmer switch than a light switch. The mind moves through different intensities and different kinds of awareness, sometimes in the same hour. The philosopher and neuroscientist community has often described this in terms of levels, from simple wakefulness to focused attention to full self-reflective awareness, where you are not only conscious, but conscious that you are conscious. A cat may be aware of the mouse. You are aware of the mouse, aware of your hunger, and aware that you are the one doing the noticing. That extra fold, awareness folding back on itself, is sometimes treated as the highest rung on the ladder. But here is the analogy that makes this strange rather than merely technical. Imagine consciousness like the resolution of a camera. A basic organism might register only light and dark. A single low-resolution pixel of something is happening. A more complex nervous system adds color, shape, movement. The picture sharpens. A human mind adds a further layer, a picture of the picture. The camera becomes aware that it is a camera. This is unsettling once you sit with it, because it means the difference between a simple organism, and you might not be a difference in kind, but a difference in degree, more layers of the same basic phenomenon, stacked higher and higher, rather than some special ingredient added only to humans. And if it is only a matter of degree, the next question becomes almost impossible to avoid. Where does the ladder actually start? This is where the ladder metaphor starts to buckle, because if consciousness is just a matter of degree, more layers, more complexity, more folding back on itself, then it should, in principle, extend downward without any clean stopping point. This is the intuition behind a view called panpsychism, the idea, taken seriously by a number of contemporary philosophers, that some extremely faint trace of experience may exist even in matter far simpler than a brain, not thought, not feeling as we know it, but some minimal spark of something it is like to be that system, present all the way down. It is a strange idea. It is also, strangely, hard to fully dismiss, because the alternative has its own problem. If consciousness only switches on at some threshold of complexity, we are forced to explain how and why raw, non-experiencing matter suddenly produces experience once it is arranged a certain way. Philosophers call this the hard problem of consciousness, and no one, not neuroscience, not physics, not philosophy, has solved it. We can map which neurons fire when you see red. We still cannot explain why that firing is accompanied by the felt redness at all, rather than nothing. So the latter is challenged from both directions. Say consciousness only belongs to complex brains, and you have to explain a mysterious light switch flipping on at some arbitrary level of complexity. Say it goes all the way down, and you have to explain how a rock, a thermostat, or a single cell could possess even a whisper of experience, and how those whispers combine into something as rich as what you feel right now. There is a further complication, one that is less abstract and more uncomfortable. If consciousness comes in degrees, then moral consideration may have to come in degrees too. A being with a dimmer, simpler form of awareness may still be capable of something like suffering, just a thinner, more muted version of it. This is not a neutral, academic puzzle. It quietly presses on how we treat animals, how we think about the edges of human life, and even how we might one day think about artificial minds if machines ever cross whatever threshold matters. The latter, in other words, does not just raise a question about biology or physics. It raises a question about who and what deserves to matter, and on what grounds we are allowed to draw that line at all. Maybe the mistake was ever expecting a clean line in the first place. We want consciousness to be like a border on a map, a place where not aware ends and aware begins. But almost nothing else in nature works that way. Life itself has no sharp boundary. It fades gradually from simple chemistry into simple organisms, with disputed cases in between. Color has no sharp boundary. It fades from blue into green through shades no one can name with certainty. Perhaps consciousness is the same kind of thing. Not a wall, but a gradient. And our discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong with the world, but a sign that we are asking a yes or no question of something that was never built to answer in those terms. If that is true, then every level of consciousness, the flicker of a dream, the sharp focus of thought, the wide stillness of a quiet mind, and whatever faint thing might stir in creatures far simpler than us, is not a rung to climb past, but a facet of the same underlying reality, seen at different resolutions. And this reframes the original question. It is not really, is this thing conscious? It becomes, how much is here, and what does it feel like, if anything, to be it? That is a harder question, but it is also a more honest one, and a more humbling one, because it asks us to hold uncertainty about minds that are not our own, rather than assuming we already know where the light goes out. So the next time you notice yourself simply noticing something, the weight of your body in a chair, the sound of your own breathing, remember that you are standing somewhere on a ladder whose bottom no one has found and whose top no one has proven exists. Sit with that for a moment before you decide you already know what you are.